Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper. These are the topics that we shall be discussing today. And let's get started and look at topic number 1. Uniform Civil Code is part of government's agenda, says Union Law Minister Mr. Meghwal. But first things first. Mr. Meghwal is not a cabinet minister. Mr. Meghwal is a minister of state with independent charge. What does that mean? Either you are a cabinet minister or a minister of state with independent charge or a minister of state. Mr. Meghwal is a minister of state of parliamentary affairs, because Mr. Kiren Rijiju is the cabinet minister for parliamentary affairs. So to assist the cabinet minister for parliamentary affairs, we have Mr. Meghwal, who is minister of state, reporting to the cabinet minister. But when he is handling law and justice ministry, he is working independent of a cabinet minister. That means he does not report to the cabinet minister. He is a minister of state, does not have a cabinet minister's rank, but is independently managing law and justice ministry without any cabinet minister. So Mr. Meghwal is minister of state with independent charge. Now it was argued by political commentators that now since the coalition government, because the BJP is short of majority on its own, it needs allies such as the TDP, such as the JDU, such as the Ramvilas Paswan's LJP, now headed by his son, also needs other smaller political parties. So contentious issues might be put on a back burner, such as a uniform civil code, such as one nation, one election. But now the law minister is saying that this uniform civil code is part of the government's agenda. And what is this uniform civil code? We have discussed this multiple times, but very briefly, let's try and understand it again. Article 44 of the Constitution, which is a directive principle of state policy, it starts with a peculiar sentence: the state shall endeavor. When we look at other directive principles, most of the other directive principles, except Article 51 and Article 44, they say the state shall do this. The state shall take steps to organize village panchayats and empower them with powers to enable them to function as units of rural local self-government. The state shall do this, the state shall do that. These are positive obligations on the state. But when it comes to Article 44 as well as Article 51, which says the state shall endeavor to take steps to promote international peace, to solve all international disputes through arbitration, that's Article 51. And Article 44, it does not say the state shall enact a uniform civil code. It says the state shall endeavor to enact for its citizens a uniform civil code throughout this country. Now, what is this uniform civil code? Criminal laws are common for everyone, regardless of your religion. That means whether a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Sikh commits any crime, the law is equally applicable to them. There is no discrimination on the grounds of religion, or there is no differential treatment on the grounds of religion. Similarly, civil laws are also common. For example, contracts, so on and so forth. But within civil laws, there are some laws called personal laws. These laws related to issues such as marriage, divorce, inheritance, adoption. These are the matters where different communities are governed differently based on the personal laws. For example, Hindus are governed separately, although those laws have been codified, but these are separate laws. Muslims are governed under the Muslim personal law. Similarly, Parsis governed separately, Christians governed separately. But Article 44, what it did, it imposed a positive obligation on the state that you have to take steps, you have to strive, the state shall endeavor to take steps to enact for its citizens a uniform civil code so that we have a common law, just like we have a criminal law which is common for everyone. civil laws which are common for everyone. Even in personal matters, there should be one law which should be applicable to all the communities, regardless of the differences. That is what the Constitution envisaged in 1950. But years later, this directive principle of state policy has not been implemented. In fact, it came to a point in 1980s when in Shah Bano verdict, the Supreme Court regretted that even after decades of India's independence and constitution, we are still not in a position to enact a uniform civil code. But you would know that these directive principles are not enforceable in a court of law. So the court cannot direct the parliament or the government to enact a uniform civil code. It is at the discretion of the state. Now, Goa is one state where we can say a uniform civil code is in place. Recently, Uttarakhand became another state where they passed a uniform civil code, although the tribal communities were excluded from uniform civil code. But be that as it may, what sort of question has been asked in the UPSC examination, mains examination from this topic, and what sort of question can be asked? In 2015, the question was, discuss the possible factors that inhibit India from enacting for its citizens a uniform civil code as provided in the directive principles of state policy. Similarly, another question can be asked. Uniform civil code is neither necessary nor desirable at this stage, critically analyze. And this is not my statement. This is the statement of the Law Commission of India, which was then headed by Justice B.S. Chauhan, who said uniform civil code is neither necessary nor desirable at this particular stage. But how do we look at this particular concept? If we look at uniform civil code, there are institutions, individuals which are in favor of a uniform civil code. And there are also individuals, institutions which are against a uniform civil code. What are the grounds on the basis of which we can say that there should be or there could be and there has to be a uniform civil code? One, no discrimination on the grounds of religion. So that we should have a common law equally applicable to all the religious communities. And that would speak of equality. And equality, as you would know, is enshrined as a fundamental right under Article 14 of the Constitution. Second, there should be a uniform civil code in the name of secularism, for the sake of secularism. Because secularism, what does it mean? It means that the state shall withdraw from the religious activities. No religion could be a state religion or can be a state religion. But secularism also means that there should be equal treatment of all religions. And the true secularism would be implemented in India if there is a uniform civil code where there is no partiality when it comes to a particular religion or a group of religions. All religions are to be treated equally, protected equally. Similarly, only when we will have a uniform civil code can we ensure gender justice. There are communities where women do not have the right to grant divorce to their abusive husbands. Inheritance rights, adoption rights, all these are not commonly equally applicable to all the religious communities. So if there is one big constituency which gets discriminated because of multiple personal laws, that is a woman. And for the sake of women, for the sake of gender justice, there should be a uniform civil code. These are three main broad reasons why there should be a uniform civil code. Those who are against a uniform civil code, they say we should not have a uniform civil code. Why? Because Constitution talks about uniform. It does not talk about a common civil code. Now, what is the difference? If the Constitution would have spoken of the state shall endeavor to enact for its citizens a common civil code, that means one law equally applicable to all the religious communities. But that's not the common civil code that Constitution talks about. It talks about uniform civil code. And some constitutional experts say that the word uniform and not common is there for a specific reason, for a specific purpose. And the purpose is that we can have one law for Hindus, one law for Muslims, one law for Christians, one law for Parsis. But this law should be uniformly applicable to all these members of these communities, irrespective of any discrimination on the grounds of sex, on the grounds of caste, so on and so forth. So one law applicable for one religion in personal matters. But this law should be uniformly applicable to all the members of that community, regardless of any discrimination. That is the concept of Uniform Civil Code. And they also say, what about fundamental rights? I don't need to explain this in great detail because that is part of the static portion that you must have covered already. If you look at directive principles of state policy which are not enforceable in a court of law, but fundamental rights which are enforceable in a court of law, what if you want to give effect to a directive principle, but in the process, fundamental rights are violated? What will prevail? Directive principles or fundamental rights? The position of the courts previously has been that directive principles are inferior, fundamental rights are superior. But it came to a point where Constitution was amended multiple times, and today the position is that there are two directive principles. Which are these two directive principles? 39B and 39C. They have primacy, or should we say, for the lack of a better word, priority over Articles 14 and 19. Which are these two directive principles? 39 Clause B, which says the material resources should be evenly distributed so as to subserve the common good. Article 39 Clause C, which says the operation of the economic system should not result in the concentration of wealth to a common detriment, should not result in the concentration of wealth in fewer hands. Only these two directive principles have primacy over Articles 14 and 19, two fundamental rights. Does that mean Article 44 will have primacy over other fundamental rights? No. And what is that fundamental right we are talking about? Article 25 and Article 29. Article 25 gives me the freedom of religion. I have the fundamental right to profess, practice and propagate my religion. And if my religion allows polygamy, if my religion allows multiple wives, if the religion allows some other things which other communities are not granted, what will prevail? Fundamental rights or directive principle? What will prevail? Fundamental right or a uniform civil code? Similarly, Article 29, which gives an absolute fundamental right, a close to absolute fundamental right to Indians, to citizens, that any segment of citizens of India residing anywhere within the territory of India, if you have a unique culture, language or script of your own, culture, script, language of your own, and you want to preserve that culture, that's a fundamental right. So in tribal communities, where there are some tribal communities where the divorce is granted by splitting of a leaf. Marriage is a contract, and you take out a leaf, split it in the middle, and the divorce is granted. Will this form of tribal culture get protection, or will it be removed if there is a uniform civil code? Because that tribal culture gets protection under Article 29 of the Constitution. And that is why there are strong arguments, equally strong arguments on both sides. Those who are in favor, those who are against. And that is perhaps why the Law Commission of India, headed by Justice B.S. Chauhan, it said that at this stage, this uniform civil code is neither necessary nor desirable. And that is what you need to practice for today's practice question. Let's look at another topic. Aam Aadmi Party suggests TDP, JDU ask for Speaker's post, offers India's backing. Now, it was thought that those allies who are supporting the BJP, because the BJP on its own is short on numbers, would insist on plum portfolios. For example, finance, for example, home, for example, agriculture or rural development. And they would also insist on the Speaker's post. Why is the Speaker's post very important? Imagine a situation where TDP with 16 MPs and the JDU with 12 MPs or Chirag Paswan's Lok Jan Shakti Party Ram Vilas with 5 MPs. The BJP would need the support of these allies to continue to form the government at the centre. But what if these 16 MLAs, they decide to revolt against the TDP leadership and support the BJP, despite the fact that TDP leader may say you don't have to support the BJP? Or the JDU members, they support the BJP against the wishes of the leadership. Or the MPs of this political party, -1. Maybe Mr. Chirag Paswan would not support the BJP, would want to come out, but the 4 remaining MPs will support the BJP. In this case, Speaker will play a very important role, because normally these MPs should have been then disqualified under the provisions of the 10th schedule, under the provisions of the anti-defection law. But the Speaker will not act on this question. Will keep on deferring this matter again and again and again and not disqualify these MPs, which means the government also survives, which means these MPs will also survive, which means anti-defection law would be violated. Where will the leaders of these political parties go? They will have to come to the Speaker to disqualify. But the Speaker belongs, if it belongs to the BJP, Speaker will not take any action. Otherwise, they have to go to the court. And the courts, you know, Tariq pe Tariq pe Tariq, and the matter would be over. And then the next Lok Sabha election, the time for the next Lok Sabha election would be there. Just like what is happening in Maharashtra, because the matter is still pending before the court. Whether the decision taken by Mr. Rahul Narvekar, who is the Speaker of Maharashtra Legislative Assembly, in not disqualifying MLAs belonging to the Eknath Shinde faction or belonging to Mr. Ajit Pawar's faction, whether they should have been disqualified or not, the matter is still pending the court. That is why Speaker plays a very important role. And also the Speaker is the head of the Business Advisory Committee, who gets to decide who will speak in the Parliament, for how much time will you speak in the Parliament, who gets to be expelled from the Parliament, who gets to be marshalled out of the Parliament, when the bills are to be taken up for discussion. What if the opposition wants to introduce a no confidence motion and the Speaker says, I'm not going to accept it? So the Speaker plays a very important role, and that is why Aam Aadmi Party, which is part of the India Alliance, is asking these 2 regional political parties to forcefully ask for the Speaker's post. And even if the BJP is not agreeing to your request, then don't worry, you put up a candidate, we will ensure the support of India Alliance, which is of 232 to 233 MPs, and we will ensure that you become the Speaker. But from this topic, what sort of question has been asked previously in your examination? For example, in Mains 2020, once a Speaker, always a Speaker. Do you think this practice should be adopted to impart objectivity to the office of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha? What could be its implications for the robust functioning of parliamentary business in India? In fact, in Britain, for example, if I am the Speaker, if I am elected as the Speaker of the House of Commons, I resign from my political party. For example, the current Speaker, he belonged to the Labour Party. And once he was elected as the Speaker, he resigned from the Labour Party. Why? Because you have to appear impartial. You don't have to favor your own MPs as against the opposition, because you are like a class monitor who has to be completely impartial to all the members of the Lok Sabha. Similarly, in India, if this practice was followed, whoever is elected as the Speaker will resign from that party so that he appears or she appears as impartial. And at the same time, this Speaker will continue forever and ever till his retirement, till her retirement. Because in the next Lok Sabha election, if the Speaker has to contest elections again from his constituency, normally no other opposition would set up a candidate against the Speaker. Which means you will get elected from your constituency, normally uncontested, unopposed. Which means Speaker today is favoring the ruling political party, and this is not the case of BJP. This has been the case previously as well. This can be the case in the future as well, unless and until we insulate this office from political pressures and pulls. And how can we do that? Once the Speaker is elected, you resign from your political party. And this Speaker continues for 5 years. Then the Speaker will have to contest Lok Sabha election again. Because if you're not the member of the Lok Sabha, you cannot be elected as the speaker. And you will get elected from your constituency and no other political party will set up a candidate against you. Which means you will come back to Lok Sabha unopposed, elected unopposed. Which means you will not favor any political party. You will be impartial because your seat in the Lok Sabha is not dependent upon the support of any political party. That is what we mean, once a speaker, always a speaker. And this is how and what sort of question has been asked from this topic in your mains examination. Clear? And also the eyes will be on the deputy speaker, because the date of election of the deputy speaker is set up by the speaker. So once the speaker is elected, then the speaker will set a date for the election of the deputy speaker. And the last Lok Sabha, the 17th Lok Sabha, was the first one in which we did not have a deputy speaker for the full 5 years. What will happen in the 18th Lok Sabha? We'll have to wait and watch, but this is how you will have to look at this topic. An important announcement before we proceed further. For those who are targeting prelims or CSE 2025 and beyond, and if you want coaching, and for that if you want online coaching, you can and please consider Unacademy, where there is an English batch, there is a English batch and bilingual, there is a Hindi batch as well. And depending upon your requirement, you can opt for these batches, provided you need coaching, guidance, online classes for your civil services preparation. And why I'm telling you today, because this is the best time. If you consider this course, this is the best time to opt for this course, because a special price drop campaign is underway, where the 15-month subscription for your GS CSAT is at less than 30,000. After the prelims examination, the course fee will be increased again. So if you are considering coaching, consider us. If you are considering buying the course, consider now, because now is the best time, because now it is the most affordable coaching program. Be that as it may, let's look at another topic, India's looming financial crisis. And I got a request from Sham sir today saying, please skip this topic because I'm going to cover this in the upcoming Economy This Week lecture. It's a fantastic article, brilliant article. It talks about how the amount of loans given to households, whether that is a good benchmark to look at the flourishing Indian economic position, or whether it is something of a crisis that is brewing. The household loans that are given, they are given for lifestyle, they're given for gadgets, they're given for some elective surgeries. Whether that's a good sign or bad sign, that Shamsar would be discussing in Economy This Week lecture. But please watch that lecture, and this is a very, very important article. Let's look at another topic, continuity and stability. The BJP has kept important portfolios for itself despite the new reality. Is there a continuity or is there a change? The change seems that we have a coalition government, but in terms of optics, nothing has changed. It is all in continuum, which means all the important cabinet positions the BJP has given to its own members, and some smaller portfolios given to the allies. Although some allies have raised questions, for example, the NCP headed by Mr. Pawar, Mr. Ajit Pawar, not Sharad Pawar. He was asking for a cabinet minister's post, but he was given a Minister of State for independent charge, and they decided not to join the ministry. The Eknath Shinde faction was not given a cabinet status, while as they allege that Chirag Paswan is a cabinet minister. So on and so forth, there will be rumblings in a coalition politics, that is all understood. But 4 top ministries the BJP government has continued with. The Prime Minister, it seems, has reposed his faith in the top 4 ministers who are part of Cabinet Committee on Security. Now, what is this Cabinet Committee on Security? That is something that you need to understand. It consists of 4 top ministers. It's headed by the Prime Minister, then Ministry of Home Affairs, Minister for Home Affairs, Minister for External Affairs, Minister of Finance, and Minister of Defence. They are part of the Cabinet Committee on Security, and it is considered to be one of the most powerful cabinet committees. Although if the question is asked in your prelims examination, which cabinet committee is considered to be a super cabinet? Sometimes such questions have been asked. The name of that committee is Political Affairs Committee, Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs. But if we have to view Cabinet Committee of Security, we can say this is one of the most powerful cabinet committees because 4 top ministers are part of it. They take stock of the internal security, they take stock of the external threats against India and all the defense acquisitions, weapons acquisitions or weapons that we need to buy, for which the capital expenditure is more than 1,000 crores. That decision has to be approved by the Cabinet Committee on Security. Remember the Rafale controversy when the opposition alleged that since Rafale deal involved expenditure of more than 1,000 crore, but this decision was not taken by Cabinet Committee on Security. This decision was taken by Mr. Modi when he met the French president in France. There he decided this deal and zeroed in on this deal and clicked this deal. After that, the decision was approved by Cabinet Committee on Security. So there were these allegations of quote-unquote corruption in Rafale transactions, but all those were put aside by the Supreme Court. But what we need to understand is Cabinet Committee on Security, the composition of it, who is the head of it, and what is the role that is played by Cabinet Committee on Security. And now all these ministers, they have the task cut out. For example, for the Home Minister, the task now would be to conduct census, which has been delayed, which was supposed to be conducted in 2021, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic got delayed. What will happen to census? What will happen to the National Population Register? And what will happen to the delimitation exercise, which is supposed to be carried out in 2026, which might put southern states at a disadvantage? That's something that we will have to wait and watch for, and that is how the task for these ministers is cut out. Okay, let's look at another editorial, Facts in Fiction, a movie, Hamare 12. It was supposed to be released, but the High Court in Maharashtra imposed a stay. And then some changes were made, some so-called communal dialogues were sought to be replaced. And ultimately, this ban on this film, which was for 2 weeks imposed by the Bombay High Court, was lifted. But now the Karnataka government has decided to ban the screening of this movie. Why? Because if this movie is screened, the allegation is, the situation is that there may be communal tensions and there may be violation of public order. And what this editorial says, no ban on books or films can be justified in the name of upholding order. But you might say, sir, how is this topic relevant for the exam? Will a question on such a topic be asked in the exam? If not directly, but indirectly, and sometimes directly as well. For example, look at the kind of question that was asked in 2014. What do you understand by the concept freedom of speech and expression? Does it cover hate speech also? Why do the films in India stand on a slightly different plane from other forms of expression? Discuss. So these topics are important. For that, let's understand. Article 19, Clause 1, Clause A, which is a fundamental right, freedom of speech and expression, you would know is not an absolute fundamental right. Because on this freedom of speech and expression, there are 8 reasonable restrictions. These reasonable restrictions can be imposed on your freedom of speech and expression on the grounds of sovereignty and integrity of India, security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, morality or decency, contempt of court, incitement to an offence, defamation. So these are the 8 reasonable restrictions on your freedom of speech and expression as mentioned in the Constitution. But do you also know that this ground public order was not originally part of the restrictions on your freedom of speech and expression. This ground that your freedom of speech and expression can be restricted on the grounds of public order was added to the Constitution by the first Constitutional Amendment Act 1951. Why was it done? That was done because of Ramesh Thapar case 1950. I'll make it brief. A magazine was to be circulated and distributed in Madras. The government said, the Madras government said, because it was then Madras, the government said if this magazine is circulated and distributed and read by people in Madras, it would lead to violation of public order. Bombay Mirror was the magazine. And the circulation of this magazine was stopped, blocked. Mr. Ramesh Thapar approached the Supreme Court and said, on what grounds is this magazine being stopped? Because this is part of freedom of speech and expression. I want to read it. Somebody wants to circulate it. That's also part of the freedom of speech and expression. Somebody wants to publish it. That's also part of freedom of speech and expression. The Madras government said, if this magazine is distributed, there will be violation of law and order, breakdown of public order, there will be riots. The court said, no, your order is unconstitutional. Why? Because look at Article 19 of the Constitution. It says freedom of speech and expression. It also imposes restrictions, but public order is not a ground on the basis of which you can restrict freedom of speech and expression. In response to this judgment, Parliament amended the Constitution, enacted the first Constitutional Amendment Act 1951 and added public order as a ground for depriving you or restricting your freedom of speech and expression. But then it is the same ground which has been used, overused, hyperused, abused by the governments to stifle dissent, to stifle books, to stifle other forms of creative expressions, which is part of the freedom of speech and expression. For example, a movie, Padmavati, initially it was called Padmavati. It was blocked by the governments in Rajasthan. Why? Not directly blocked, but there were protests, public order was violated, and ultimately the producer, the director of the movie had to change the name of this movie from Padmavati to Padmavat, as if nobody would understand the difference. Similarly, Vishwarupam of Kamal Hassan was also banned by the Jayalalitha government. A movie, Fana, was also banned. Salman Rushdie's book, Satanic Verses, was not allowed to be imported to India. So India has a history of banning books, banning movies, banning art forms, songs for violating what is called as public order. But this is not a ground on the basis of which you can violate the freedom of speech and expression and the creative expressions of our filmmakers, artists. Because it's the job of the state to protect, uphold public order. Maybe increase the security. Maybe give in to more paramilitary troops to ensure law and order, public order. But you can't be banning books, movies, art forms. If you don't like a movie, write a review of that movie. If you don't like a song, don't listen to it. If you don't like the narrative of a movie, produce another movie, or don't watch it, boycott it, or protest peacefully. That's your democratic right. But you can't be, or the governments can't be, banning movies just because it has the potential of violating public order, because that's your job to uphold public order. And in fact, in 1989, the Supreme Court in S. Rangarajan versus P. Jagjeevan Ram has categorically and explicitly stated something. And what is it that the court has stated? Freedom of expression cannot be suppressed on account of threat of demonstration and processions or threats of violence. You can't do that. But even then it is being done. And the impact that it has on the psyche of the filmmakers, because as a filmmaker, if I'm a filmmaker, I would think twice before making a movie on an emotional subject or on a difficult subject, because I would anticipate protests. And ultimately producers live from Friday to Friday. If that movie is not released on Friday, if it is not given a good reception on the Friday, they will lose out the entire investment that they made on that movie. And that is how these filmmakers, producers, they succumb to the pressures of the political class. A politician in Maharashtra may say, you can't have artists from the other country participate in your movies, otherwise we will not let you release your movies in our state. So that is how the filmmakers are on a different plane when it comes to freedom of speech and expression. But this editorial also says, it may be possible that a particular movie has a narrative, and through that narrative you want to castigate the minorities or another community. You might want to sow the seeds of suspicion, or it might be a movie which is meant to divert the attention of the nation. It might be a movie which might not be truthful. Even then, there is no reason to ban that movie. You should explore constitutional methods to criticize that movie, but you should not resort to unconstitutional methods to criticize a movie which may not be truthful. Clear? So that is what you need to understand. No ban on books or films can be justified in the name of upholding order. Let's look at another article, Bihar's call for a special category status. 11 states in India, 7 sisters of Northeast, plus Sikkim, plus Himachal Pradesh, plus Uttarakhand, plus the UT of Jammu and Kashmir. These are 11 special category states in India. There is also a wide-ranging confusion amongst aspirants. Is Telangana a special category state? If you look at the reply of the Home Minister on the floor of the Parliament in 2018, Telangana is not a special category state. So we have 11 states as special category states. But what is the special category status? It was the 5th Finance Commission in 1969 which said that some states such as Assam, such as Jammu and Kashmir, such as Nagaland in 1969 should be given some concessional treatment in the form of tax breaks. They may not have to pay tax for some time. The government may not have to pay tax for some time. Why? Because difficult and hilly terrain bordering the countries, foreign countries, or maybe because these states are unable to generate their own revenue, or what is called non-viable nature of state finances. The revenue generating capacity of these states is not enough to meet the requirements of that state. So what do? We have to give them special treatment, and that is how the category SCS, special category status, got introduced. And then it was extended to other states. So in total 11 states we have currently with a special category status. But what is the treatment that they get, and what is the qualification? Qualification is those states which have a difficult hilly terrain, where there is a significant amount of tribal population, where there is a non-viable nature of state finances, where this state may be bordering an international country, bordering an international border. These are the conditions on the basis of which a special category status can be accorded to a state. And what is the benefit that they get? For example, if it's a central sponsored scheme, 90% of the funds will be given by the center. Only 10% the states have to raise on their own. But if it's a general category state, this state for a central sponsored scheme, sometimes 60, sometimes 70 is given by the center. The remaining is to be managed by the state on their own. So there is a treatment, special treatment given to some states because of their geographical conditions, because of their bordering with the international country, because of the significant amount of the tribal population, so on and so forth. But then came the demand. And the demand was Bihar should be given a special status. The demand was Odisha should also be given a special status. The demand was Andhra Pradesh should also be given a special status. Why? Because the Andhra Pradesh was bifurcated in 2014. Majority of the revenue, or a good portion of the revenue, would come from Hyderabad, which has now been given to Telangana as the capital. So to compensate for that, we need a special category status. But this was not given. Why? Because the 14th Finance Commission, prior to 14th Finance Commission, 32% of the divisible pool of taxes were given to the states. Divisible pool of taxes, for example, income tax, that is imposed by the center, that's collected by the center. Corporate tax, that's imposed by the center, collected by the center, but that is distributed with the states. According to what formula? That's decided by a constitutional body under Article 280 of the Constitution, known as the Finance Commission. And states have no representation in the Finance Commission. This Finance Commission used to say that 32% of the divisible pool of taxes should be distributed with the states. But the 14th Finance Commission said, forget about special category status, forget about general category status. All the states will be treated equally, and instead of 32, 42% of the divisible pool of taxes should be given to the states. Which means all the states, they raised and they got more money from the Finance Commission's recommendations. And that is why 14th Finance Commission said, we will no longer give special category status. Because the special category status used to be given by NDC of erstwhile Planning Commission. There used to be a Planning Commission till 2014. When Mr. Modi came to power, Planning Commission was abolished. One organ of this Planning Commission was the National Development Council. It was this NDC which gave special category status, which used to give special category status. But now Planning Commission is gone, NDC is gone. If a special category status is to be given, that can be given on the directions of the recommendations of the Finance Commission. And there are some experts who say that since 14th Finance Commission has done away with the idea of a special category state and a general category state, all states are equal. Now there is no need to give a special category status to anybody or to any state. But Finance Commission has said that we have not said don't give special category status. You can still give. We have not banned the categorization. Dr. Raghuram Rajan, his committee was set up by Dr. Manmohan Singh. How do we provide funding to the states? He set up something called multi-dimensional poverty index. He said based on this we should be given more funds to the states. But listen to me carefully. If states such as Bihar, yes, it is a poor state, no doubt about that. The per capita income is also less as compared to other developed states. Andhra Pradesh also, yes. Andhra Pradesh, which played a very important role in the development of Hyderabad as the capital of the twin states of Hyderabad and Telangana, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. It was a joint capital for 10 years. Now Amravati is going to be the capital of Andhra Pradesh. Both of them and the leaders who lead these two states, they are now part of the national coalition, the TDP and the JDU. They might put pressure on the central government to grant a special category status to them. In fact, in 2018, when Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, he was part of NDA, he withdrew from NDA because Andhra Pradesh was not given a special category status. If it is given, will it be good or bad? It might be bad because then demands will come from other states that what about us? In Odisha, we have now a BJP government. They will also have to tell their people that we also got the special category state. So ultimately, it is going to drain the exchequer. It's going to be a huge burden on the state exchequer, which other states may not like. To explain this in a way that you can understand, let's compare it with delimitation. What is delimitation? Redrawing the electoral boundaries, the constituencies, after every census. When the census exercise is carried out based on the increase in the population, corresponding to that, the seats in Lok Sabha will also be increased. We'll focus on Lok Sabha, we'll skip Legislative Assembly for a while, just to understand this concept. Delimitation happened after 1951 census. It happened after 1961 census. It happened after 1971 census. And then we saw increase in the number of seats in Lok Sabha. But we saw the increase mostly pronounced in the northern India as opposed to the southern India. And this is where the southern states protested, met the Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi and asked for a stay. Don't carry out further delimitation. Why? Because you are penalizing us. Sir, how do you explain it? What is a tax and what is a fine? What's the difference between tax and a fine? In a humorous manner, if we have to give out the difference, tax is something that you will have to pay for doing good. That's tax. Fine is something that you will have to pay for doing something wrong. That's the difference, in a humorous manner. But the southern states had to pay for doing good. Why? Because they carried out family planning programs effectively. The northern states, the population exploded because these governments were ineffective, or should we say incompetent, to carry out family planning programs effectively. So if delimitation tomorrow is carried out strictly according to population, northern states will be at an advantage, southern states will be at a disadvantage. So you are penalizing southern states for doing good, and you are rewarding non-performing states, incompetent states. That's exactly what will happen. Bihar, UP, for example, why are they poor states in India? According to this article, they are poor because of the poor law and order management. Because when there is lack of security in a particular state, industry will not go to that state because industry needs peace, security to flourish. So Bihar was lacking on law and order. UP was lacking on law and order. That is why these states are very slow when it comes to industrialization. These states are continuing to be the poorer states in India. Bihar says that after we were bifurcated, Jharkhand was carved out from us. Industries went to Jharkhand and ultimately we lost out on the revenue. And that is why we need a special category status. Southern states are doing well in terms of industries. For example, Telangana, for example, Karnataka, for example, Tamil Nadu, for example, Maharashtra as well, for example, Gujarat as well. They are doing well because they have provided peace, security, and they've ensured law and order, and that is what attracts industry, and that is what leads to GDP growth, and that is what leads to flourishing of economy. If you give special category status to Bihar, because the focus is on Bihar's call for special category status, it might send a wrong signal to the other states that we are being penalized because our revenue is taken away and given to a state which has done beautifully not well when it comes to law and order management. So that is why this column says, this article says, while more funds from centre might offer Bihar some short-term relief, its long-term economic prospects will depend on state's ability to further strengthen rule of law. So special category state, what is it? Who gives it? Who gave it? What are the conditions? Should Bihar be given a special category status? That's something that we had to understand from this column. Let's look at prelims. Focus prelims. Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi to take over as Army Chief. Now listen to me carefully. The current Army Chief, General Manoj Pandey, had to retire on the 31st of May this year. But in a surprising move, in a surprising development, his term was extended by a month. First thing that you need to keep in mind, who takes such decision? That decision is taken by another cabinet committee that we had to focus on, Appointments Committee of the Cabinet. Who is part of this Appointments Committee of the Cabinet? important detail. It's headed by the Prime Minister, and the other member is the Union Home Minister. And now this Appointments Committee of the Cabinet, it has recommended Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi as the next Army Chief, because the term of General Manoj Pandey will get over on the last day of June this month. But why was it surprising? Surprising in the sense, why was it surprising to give 1 month extension to General Manoj Pandey? Because this happened for the first time since 1971. Because last time the extension was given to the Army Chief was in 1971, when the then Prime Minister Shrimati Indira Gandhi and the then government decided to extend the term of General Sam Manekshaw, because of his contributions in the 1971 India-Pakistan war, which led to the emergence of Bangladesh as an independent country. That was the last time when the term of the Army Chief was extended. And now it was for the first time since 1971 that the term of the Army General was extended. Then at that time, those who watch Indian Army and report for Indian Army, in a sense who publish reports on Indian Army, keep a track of the Army, they said that maybe the government does not want to promote Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi as the Chief of Army Staff. They might want to have a rethink. Why? Because who is going to be the next Chief Justice of India? After Justice Chandrachud, who is the senior most judge of the Supreme Court? Justice Sanjeev Khanna will be the Chief Justice of India. After that, who will be the most senior most judge? Will be the Chief Justice of India. Similarly, after General Manoj Pandey, who is the senior most army officer? The senior most army officer is Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi. So by convention, he should have been appointed as the Army Chief. But if you are giving extension of 1 month to General Manoj Pandey, and Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi would have to retire in June, that means that you want to overlook Lieutenant General Dwivedi as the Army Chief. Because the Army Chief or the Navy Chief or the Air Force Chief, they retire at the age of 62. But if you are of the Lieutenant General rank and the equivalent ranks in our Air Force and Navy, you retire at the age of 60. So if Lieutenant General Dwivedi was overlooked, and if the term of General Manoj Pandey was extended further, then Lieutenant General Dwivedi would not have been made the Army Chief. Some people would say that it was because of Model Code of Conduct that the government did not want to appoint the Army Chief. Because Model Code of Conduct, which starts when the date is announced by the Election Commission till the declaration of results. But on May 1, despite Model Code of Conduct, Navy Chief was appointed by the government. So that is why some concerns were raised. It was argued that maybe the government wants to overlook Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi as the next Army Chief and might want to appoint someone else. But now, Appointments Committee of the Cabinet has appointed Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi. He will take over as the next Army Chief when General Manoj Pandey will demit office in the afternoon of the 30th of June. Clear? Let's look at another topic. Indian Institute of Science develops method to remove heavy metal contaminants from the groundwater. Groundwater, if it contains pollutants, it can be treated so that this groundwater is fit for human consumption, drinking water. But what will happen to the contaminants? Normally, when this groundwater was treated, contaminants were taken out, and then these contaminants would be deposited in the landfill, and then from landfill, these contaminants will go down again to the groundwater. Indian Institute of Science says that as of now, the technology that we have seen is that you can take out the pollutants from the groundwater and provide clean water. However, after you remove arsenic, you must do something about arsenic, so that it does not re-enter the environment. It is this aspect which was not focused upon. And now a new technology has been developed by Indian Institute of Science, where even this aspect will be taken care of, and that is pending patent. Patent may also be awarded to this technology. But what you need to understand from the civil services examination point of view, what are these contaminants that are normally present in groundwater? These are the 11 contaminants normally found in the groundwater. And listen to me carefully. Central Groundwater Board, it did a survey of the states in India and found that first it is Punjab. Punjab was found to be the most, or should we say the highest exploited groundwater state. Followed by Rajasthan, Delhi, Haryana. In fact, there is a study which was conducted way back in 2016 as well. It said there are 9 states in India where we can say that this level of groundwater has achieved the stage of critical. And what is this critical stage? Where we can say that 90% of the groundwater has been extracted. That was in 2016. And Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Rajasthan, these are overexploited states when it comes to groundwater. Groundwater has been extracted. What sort of question can be asked from this topic and has been asked? For example, in 2013 prelims examination, this question was asked. Which of the following can be found as pollutants in the drinking water in some parts of India? Arsenic, look at this list, yes. Sorbitol, no. Fluoride, yes. Formaldehyde, no. Uranium, yes. 135C is the right answer. So that is why I gave you today topics. What sort of questions can be asked? What sort of questions have been asked? Because sometimes what happens, the aspirants, they look at a particular newspaper and they skip some of the news articles considering that these are not relevant for the exam. Or even if you know that these topics are relevant, how exactly do you need to go about these topics? What information do you need to extract from these topics so that you are prepared for the civil services examination? That is why when it comes to the topic number 1 on Uniform Civil Code, then when it came to the topics such as the ban on Hamare Bara movie, which was banned by Karnataka for 2 weeks, because there once the Central Board for Film Certification, CBFC, has given its permission, entire controversy should rest there. After that, no further controversy. You can't be going back to the courts again to ban a movie, because once CBFC gives a decision, you have to abide by it. Otherwise, it will go on litigating again and again. What sort of questions can be asked? What sort of questions have been asked? That is how you need to approach the exam. Because there are 2 important documents that you need to focus on: syllabus and previous year's question papers. Because syllabus will tell you what to study, but previous year's question papers will tell you how to study, how to anticipate questions that can be asked in the examination. And if you like today's approach of the Hindu newspaper analysis, do let me know in the comment section. But first, do like this live session, subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and share the links of these classes with your friends and fellow aspirants. See you again next time. Till then, have a great time. All the best. Stay safe.